Okay, here we are after your starter has been fed and risen and is ready to be fed again. So you can see it's risen up, there's visible bubbles on the side, it has kind of a glossy look to it on top. It's very aerated. Now we're going to go ahead and use this well-fed and hungry starter to create our starter for today. Levain is another term you will hear a lot in reference to the starter. So what I'm doing now is I'm portioning out 25 grams of the starter to go toward my levain for my bake today. I'm going to go ahead and clear out that scale, and I'm going to add some all-purpose flour. Now, this starter tends to like to feed on all-purpose flour as well as whole wheat flour. You won't actually use the all-purpose flour in the bread making itself. You'll just use that in the feeding as well as any dusting you do to the final shaping and to the bannetons at the end. Oops, I added too much, so I'm going to remove a little bit. Okay, I'm going to clear that scale again, or tear that scale again, to make sure that I'm at 0 each time I'm weighing. I'm going to add this whole wheat flour in, and I'm also adding 25 grams of it. Now, I've got my scale set on grams, because that is kind of the standard method we use to weigh when we're baking. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and clear that scale, and I'm going to add my water. So this water has been sitting in this bottle at room temperature for at least 12 hours to kind of acclimate to the room and make sure that it's in the same temperature zone that the starter itself was last night when I fed it. So I'm carefully pouring in 50 grams of water. It's very easy to overdo the water. Now I'm just going to make sure I have a tidy workspace before mixing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and thoroughly and somewhat vigorously stir to create the starter for today. You don't really need to worry about disturbing it or anything. Ooh, got a little wild there. You don't really need to worry about disturbing the starter. If you're mixing too vigorously, that's not going to be an issue. It's more important that everything is well incorporated and that you're not seeing any dry bits at the bottom. So make sure you're kind of scooping under and around and up to make sure everything is absorbed. I like to use this narrow spatula when I'm working with my starter because it gets in there pretty well. Okay, so this is what the starter will look like once it's been fed. It's pretty goopy. It's not nearly as kind of stringy and sticky as it was at the beginning when I was portioning it out to feed it today. At this point, you want to throw that lid on top of your jar or your container, and you just want it to be set on top so that air can pass through freely. Then it's nice to mark the starter's origin point with a rubber band. A lot of people will use this method just to track and see how far that starter's risen throughout the day so that they know roughly if they're ready to go ahead and add that into their bread when they're ready to combine and mix. And that is it for feeding your starter.